Hello and welcome to Total Philosophy. In this video, we will be looking at Aristotle's theory of virtue ethics and how it relates to moral philosophy in the modern day. Up until the late 1600s, Aristotle was seen as the leading authority on all things science and ethics. But since then, we have forgotten much of what Aristotle taught and have developed our own scientific and ethical theories. However, thanks to philosophers like Elizabeth Anscombe and Alastair MacIntyre, the 20th century saw a resurgence of interest in virtue ethics.
Concepts of moral obligation and moral duty, what is morally right and wrong, and the moral sense of what we ought to do should be jettisoned if this is psychologically possible,
argued Elizabeth Anscombe in her 1958 article Modern Moral Philosophy. Anscombe was among the first philosophers of the 20th century to realise and discuss the limitations of the ethical theories that have made up so much of moral philosophy since the 1700s. Theories like Immanuel Kant's deontology, Jeremy Bentham and J.S. Mill's utilitarianism, and famed shower cap wearer David Hume's sentimentalism were all fatally flawed, she claimed, because they all presume that the practitioner of ethics has the obligation to do good over bad, and could be held responsible, even legally, for not obeying the ethical consensus, society's conscience if you will, but not necessarily your own. There are many philosophical arguments against these ethical theories, such as Hume's gap and G. Moore's naturalistic fallacy, and while Anscombe does give her own specific criticisms, they will each need their own videos to be developed and understood. However, one difference we can contrast with modern philosophy when discussing Aristotle's ethics is the definition of morality, and his silence and obligation to do those things. He doesn't argue his own view on how best to handle moral dilemmas. It is in fact one of the central tenets of his virtue ethics that nobody agrees on the correct course of action, and it's not his goal to decide what it is. Virtue ethics is about what sort of life would develop a person's character in such a way as to bring them the greatest happiness and grant the ability to both want to do the right thing and know what the right thing is. Aristotle claims that it is obvious that man desires to be happy, and virtue is the way in which they will get the highest happiness. In other words, while there is no obligation to do it per se, the wise person still pursues it. He also claimed that the greatest happiness, whatever it turned out to be, must contain these three properties. It must be desirable for itself, it must not be desirable on account of other goods, and all other goods are desirable for its sake. Aristotle said that if we fulfill these requirements, we would arrive at something called Eudaimonia, which roughly translates as overflowing happiness. In other words, we want to be as happy as we can be. We don't want to be as happy as we can be just so that we might possess some lesser good like great friends. Friends come before and not after. And we are quite willing to live a virtuous life in order to achieve the highest happiness. To use a culinary example, imagine that you were told how to make spaghetti, and that if you did not make and eat the spaghetti, you would starve. You have no obligation in order to make and eat the spaghetti, but you would be foolish not to. The reward is just that delicious. Virtue ethics can be broken into two parts, what Aristotle identifies as the highest good, eudaimonia, a human can achieve, and the actual virtues or arete, with which we attain it. While arete must be practiced, it must be remembered that each virtue is not in and of itself happiness, even if pleasurable, such as having good friends. Aristotle defines two different groups of virtues, the moral and the intellectual. He believed that if we had only one and not the other, then we would not be capable of true virtue, and would never achieve eudaimonia. In order to come to this conclusion, he creates the function argument, that points out that we actually don't pursue subordinate goods like wealth and health because they are well-being, but because they promote well-being. However, unless we can define what subordinate good happiness consists of, there is no point in saying that well-being is the highest good. To resolve this, he points out that the higher levels of rationality we have over animals indicates that the good of a human being must have something to do with being human. So using our reason well across our life is what happiness consists of. You may have heard Aristotle's famed line, "We become just by doing just acts, temperate by doing temperate acts." What he means by this is that by repeating our behaviours until it becomes habit, we form the basis of our morality. Our disposition is to do the right thing as we perceive it. But how do we know what is virtuous and what isn't? Aristotle makes a comparison with a good worker who knows how to find the middle ground between overworking, excess, and not working at all, deficiency. Likewise, we can find a middle point between exuberance and deficiency within our own actions and character. Who would claim that cowardice is a virtue? No one, argues Aristotle, and it is clearly negative, but acting rashly and running into danger is also foolhardy and shouldn't be called a virtue. To establish what we mean, and when we say someone who is virtuous, we must observe the doctrine of the golden mean. The virtues, such as justice, prudence, and courage, in the previous example, always rest somewhere between overabundance and deficiency. Another food example could be imagined of someone who has eaten too much spaghetti and someone who has eaten too little. The person who eats the Goldilocks portion will be the healthiest person. Thank you for watching Total Philosophy. We hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for all the suggestions, and we've been taking them into account. We've also rocketed up to 4,000 subscribers since the last video, and we'd like to welcome all of our new viewers. What about virtue ethics do you find most compelling? What weaknesses does it have? Which philosopher or philosophy would you like to see next? We hope to see you next time.